We are very glad to meet you today, and thank you very much for joining us in our event called Challenges and Development Paths for a Cooperative Identity in the Black Sea region. Actually, we started this project to identify several variables that are critical for our region, and we are very happy to have you today and to discuss and debate important facts about the Black Sea security and what's happening in our region. So as we already highlighted when we actually started this project, we are facing with several challenges in the Black Sea area. Following Russia's war in 2008 and illegal annexation in Crimea in 2014, Moscow has benefited from the Western strategic passiveness to question European integrity and stability. Also, Russia struggled to maintain a status quo in the Black Sea, and its effort to avoid falling into geopolitical isolation showed amplified aggressiveness against its Western neighborhood. This new reality poses challenges to European stability and security. While the Black Sea has not benefited from a so-called maritime internationalization, the region has always been subject to abuse by Russia. In a space with a high concentration of international actors and conditioned by region's geography, the Black Sea area presents the balance of a geopolitical node. And we can say that the Black Sea regional dynamic is not disconnected from the global dynamic. Therefore, we would like to welcome our distinguished speakers and for their availability and their interest in the topic. And we are here with our colleagues from the Global Studies Center, with the colleagues from the Lucian Blaga University of Sibiu, with experts, national and international experts, and also with students and interns. So we are very interested to debate, to collect ideas, also to we would like to invite you to address your kind insights in this special panel called Edges and Perspectives for Trio's Interconnection with the Euro-Atlantic World. Actually here we are referring to especially to Ukraine, Georgia, and the Republic of Moldova. And Romania is deeply interested to address to the trio and to find relevant solutions and recommendations to support in the future. So our aim in this project is to collect all these ideas and finally to provide a policy paper and to hand it to European institutions, to NATO, and to our allied partners, and also to our regional neighbors. So I would like to present also here my colleague, Leonela Leca. She will co-moderate this panel with me, and we will have interventions from Her Excellency Ms. Irina Zidaru, General Director for Strategic Affairs in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Romania. Also, His Excellency Mr. Beka Ceițe, Deputy Director of International Economic Relations Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Georgia. Dr. Hana Shelest, Hannah is Security Studies Program Director at the Ukrainian PRISM and Editor-in-Chief of Ukraine Analytica. Also, Mr. Victor Kipiani, a good friend of us, Chair of GeoCase, a think tank established in Georgia, in Tbilisi. And later will join us His Excellency Mr. Iho Prokopchuk, Ukraine's ambassador, extraordinary and plenipotentiary to Romania. Mr. Prokopchuk is involved in a parallel event in Bucharest, and he will join us during the session. Also, would like to welcome Dr. Igor Munteanu, Associate Professor and former Executive Director of IDIS Viitoru, a think tank based in the Republic of Moldova, who was, and Mr. Munteanu was ambassador, is a former ambassador of the Republic of Moldova in the United States. So thank you for being with us, and I would like to pass the microphone to Her Excellency, Ms. Irina Zidaru, to deliver her points. Do you hear us? Maybe you should turn on your microphone. We don't hear you. Ms. Zidaru, do you hear us? Yes, do you hear us? Can you? I think they don't hear us. No. Do you hear us? A message in the chat maybe will solve. Nobody. Yes. Okay, so until Ms. Zidaru will solve the technical issue, we would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Beka Cheice, Deputy Director of International Economic Relations Department from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Georgia. Sir, you have the microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of the event for giving us the opportunity to share views on the recent challenges and developments related to the Black Sea region. It's my privilege to be the first speaker in this panel, and I'm going to describe the Georgia's position and this event. As you're aware, June 23rd decision was a truly historical moment for our nation. Recognizing European perspective for Georgia is a milestone which opens new opportunities and sets new standards in our relations. A realistic prospect of the EU membership is a strong motivation for Georgia and its citizens. The EU-Georgia Association Council, held in September, reconfirmed Georgia's future lies with the EU, which carries an important message to our citizens of belonging to a common family of European democracy. We are fully aware that the European perspective and the prospect of membership comes with huge responsibility. It facilitates highest political, economic, and legal convergence with the EU. It is a complex process that requires tireless efforts and constructive engagement of all stakeholders. We count on EU support and active engagement to help us advance on this path. The candidate status is our next immediate milestone to mark, and we expect that soon Georgian people will celebrate this achievement. Present geopolitical challenges and the war in Ukraine have made the need for diversification and resilience even more imperative in order to address urgent energy, connectivity, and food security concerns. Let me to share with you how we perceive Georgia's role in terms of interconnection with the Euro-Atlantic world, where we stand, and what we can do the best. Connectivity is gaining its momentum as a shared priority of the EU and its partners. Georgia's strategic geographic location makes us a natural bridge between West and East, serving as a gateway for 8 landlocked countries of South Caucasus and Central Asia. Use global connectivity map and game changer when it comes to diversification of transport routes and energy supply to Europe. With this mind, we have made the connectivity, including in the Black Sea, a top priority. We are investing in expanding and modernizing our energy, digital, and transport infrastructure. We are bringing those sectors in line with the EU norms and standards according to the commitments under association agreement and the CFTA as well. Extending 10th core network and the EAP economic and investment plan provide important tools to facilitate investments in the strategic projects that have not only national but wider regional value as well. We have modernized our railway and introduced measures to increase safety, also reduce travel time and infrastructure costs. Baku-Tbilisi-Kars new railway line is a real success story of regional cooperation, which is currently operating in the test mode. We have upgraded our road infrastructure according to the TED action with the involvement of the European banks. We are upgrading port infrastructure and introduced public-private partnership procedures for the selection of investor for the development of Anaklia deep sea port, which remains our top priority in order to increase Georgia's competitiveness as a maritime state. We have expanded the Kutaisi and Batumi international airports that have already led to the significant increase in passenger capacity at both airports. Being a credible transit partner, Georgia has been a key link for the delivery of hydrocarbon resources via major regional energy transit route from the Caspian Sea basin to the west. The vivid example of successful partnership in the Black Sea region is more than 2 decade regional cooperation in delivering hydrocarbon resources via the West Road Export Pipeline, Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan Oil Pipeline, Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum Gas Pipeline, and the Southern Gas Corridor. We have put in place of comprehensive national broadband development strategy and its implementation action plan for 2020 to 2025, which will serve to materialize our ambition of creating a regional digital hub. Therefore, What are next priority actions that will promote regional cooperation and serve our common goal? In energy security, increasing the transportation of Caspian hydrocarbons to the EU via Georgia is one of the most effective and immediate solution to reduce Europe's dependence on Russian energy resources. The Central Asian countries are eager to supply their oil and gas resources via our corridor, but enhanced political focus and support as well as European capital investments are needed to fully harness the energy and connectivity potential of our region. A memorandum signed between the European Commission and Azerbaijan in July is set to double the exports of natural gas via our corridor. But clearly, there are ample opportunities to explore. The Black Sea underwater electricity transmission cable. It holds an important prospect with it. The project entails creation of transit opportunities, back-to-back trade option of green renewable energy between the EU and the South Caucasus region. The World Bank has elaborated a report on preliminary economic analysis of the project and proved that it is economically viable while the full-scale feasibility of the project is underway. The project has also an important environmental dimension as it is set to boost development of the renewable energy resources such as hydro, solar, and wind energy. In transport connection, Georgia offers reliable and accessible transport corridor connecting Europe and Asia. However, there is a room for improvement in the Black Sea shipping, particularly between Georgia and west bank of the sea. Corridor needs to have more direct feeder and ferry services between Georgia and Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Ukraine that decrease transit and turnover time and make it more accessible. To this end, we are looking forward to a study prepared by the European Commission following our request in order to identify concrete measures and possible intervention for ensuring better transport connection across the Black Sea. In the digital field, a Black Sea underwater digital internet cable is another concrete initiative of strategic importance. It goes hand in hand with the government's plans to develop digital corridor and data centers, which could serve as a regional hub for the South Caucasus and gateway of the UAE and Asia. Currently, the World Bank is preparing a feasibility study and a concept of the development of a digital corridor. We have also made concrete steps to advance our economic integration with the EU by applying to join single euro payments area and free roaming space. In the end, let me to express the readiness of Georgian side to continue close coordination among the trio since we perceive it is a value-based cooperation forward guided by the common European choice. Three countries have passed similar phases of European integration, and now our future is firmly toward to the EU, a format which is underpinned by the EU norms and principles, has a lot more credibility in the EU institutions and the member states, and thus represents a solid political asset for all of us. Let me to once again underline that we see the European Union as our strategic ally, with whom we seek to explore the full potential of our geographic location. developing connectivity in Black Sea promises unique opportunities of opening up alternative routes for energy supply, freight, transportation, and digital connection that will translate into stronger resilience of Europe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your message and for very valuable ideas. We totally agree that we should use our regional potential and fruit our potential and establish more advantages, interdependence and interconnection at the regional level. We will come up later with some questions after all the speakers will deliver their presentations and interventions. And I will also ask the online participants and in-person participants to draft their questions and ideas if they have to share with us later. Thank you very much. So please, my colleague Leonela will have the mic.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm honored to be here with you today. I think it's a very important effort that Professor Nate is putting here, not for the first time, as you well know. This is the next event that we have prepared for some time. And I am convinced that the outputs will be at least as valuable as those published before. I have the honor and I'm delighted to present the next speaker. It is His Excellency, the Ambassador of Ukraine to Romania, Mr. Igor Prokopnyuk. Mr. Ambassador, Your Excellency, you took over the agenda of the embassy in such a difficult context. And I just would like to underline that Romania is fully supporting Ukraine's efforts in these difficult times. You are welcome and you have the floor. I believe the microphone is muted. Your Excellency, we don't hear you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Now it's fine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's fine. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear?
Hello, we hear you.
Yes. I would like to say hello to all participants of this special session of the conference, and want to thank the organizers for convening it as a special session addressing the issues relating to Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. I wish I were able to take part personally in this session, but unfortunately, I have conflicting schedule arrangements which make me now to speak while I'm in a car. But I hope that the connection will be good enough for me to make some few relevant remarks from the Ukrainian viewpoint. First, reflecting, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we are hearing you.
Yes. First, reflecting upon the title of the session, which is about interconnections with the Euro-Atlantic world. I would like to respectfully submit to all participants of this session that Ukraine is a part of the Euro-Atlantic world. It belongs to this world. The question is that until now, it is not yet a full member of key organizations that were set up in this world with the aim of safeguarding its main principles and shared values. Right now, it is Ukraine which stands at the forefront of defending the shared values of democracy, rule of law, human rights, and the eastern borders of Ukraine turn out to be the eastern borders of this Euro-Atlantic space of democratic values. The sooner Ukraine becomes member of the European Union, of NATO, the stronger these organizations will be in safeguarding and defending the principles they all stand for. Currently, we have entered the we are over the 8th month into the war, which was launched by the Russian Federation against Ukraine because of the choices that were made by Ukraine in favor of the European Union, NATO, and in favor of democracy. It was due to the great courage of the Ukrainian people, of the Ukrainian military forces, but also thanks to solidarity and strong support of our international partners across the Atlantic Ocean and in Europe, that we have been able to withstand the pressure. And currently, the Ukrainian armed forces are conducting a successful counteroffensive. Many territories of Ukraine that have been earlier occupied by the Russian forces have been liberated by our military, and we are able to restore normalcy to these territories. Now, as you may know, the Russians have stepped up the escalation of the war by launching numerous missile attacks and drone attacks on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Starting from the 10th of October, over 100 of missiles and kamikaze drones were launched at the Ukrainian territory with a specific aim to destroy, damage the energy critical infrastructure, and with the aim to create unbearable conditions for the civilian population. This is a very strong blow as we are entering the season of colder weather and approaching winter. This does not undermine the resolve of Ukraine and Ukrainians to defend themselves and to defend the country, but it does create additional challenges. And in these circumstances, it is essential that all of us, Ukraine, the European Union, our transatlantic allies, the United States and Canada, retain the unity of purpose in assisting Ukraine to defend itself. I think the message is that the partners will stand with Ukraine as long as it is necessary, are very important for us in terms of defense, but also they are important messages to the aggressor, who hoped that the unity in countering the aggression will be somehow divided and dissolved. Speaking about the measures that need to be pursued in terms of increasing the cost of aggression on the Russian Federation, I would like to underline the significance of ongoing defense support to Ukraine and to the Ukrainian armed forces, because this is what helps to make change on the battleground and restore peace, stability on the Ukrainian territory within the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine. But also as part of non-military response to Russian armed aggression, it is essential not only maintain the sanctions pressure on Russia, but step up this pressure. After the recent terrorist attacks carried out by Russian missiles and drones on the civilian population, but also the critical infrastructure, it is essential to increase the pressures and introduce another round of sanctions. Respective proposals have already been placed on the table, and we hope that they will be speedily considered and approved by the European Union. The interconnections and interdependence of Ukraine and this Euro-Atlantic space are directly rooted into this expedited integration of Ukraine with the EU and NATO. It was a historic decision that was taken in June of this year, when Ukraine was granted a candidate status for membership in the European Union. The government of Ukraine has full resolve to implement as soon as possible the recommendations that accompanied that decision. And we will look forward to the assessment to be carried out by the European Commission that would set the ground for the next stages in the integration process of Ukraine, of progress in towards membership of the European Union. On the NATO track, on 30th of September, the Ukrainian President, Prime Minister, and the Chair of the Parliament signed an application form for Ukrainian membership in NATO. That is a very logical decision. This is a reflection of the aspiration of the Ukrainian people. This is also a practical implementation of the provision of the Ukrainian constitution. We do see that Ukraine, over the past months, has become a de facto member of NATO. The Ukrainian forces show compatibility with the weaponry systems used by NATO forces. The Ukrainian armed forces have introduced the respective NATO standards. We have very close interaction and cooperation in many areas, including in the areas relating to intelligence sharing. And this is what helps us to conduct the counteroffensive in this war unleashed by Russia, and also to show that we are capable of defeating the enemy on the battleground. So for us, it is the question that the de facto state of play in terms of our relationship with NATO be transformed into a formal membership of Ukraine in NATO. And we have full confidence that Ukraine's membership with NATO will strengthen the alliance, and it will serve as a very strong deterrent to Russia's aggressive, to any of Russia's aggressive intentions. History proves that what Russia respects is strength, and the alliance strengthened by Ukraine, by Ukrainian military, will be a force that Russia will not be contemplating to have conflict with. I note with much appreciation the support that we received, in particular from Romania for Ukraine's bid for NATO membership, as the president of this country was joined by other presidents of other Central and Eastern European NATO countries that voiced their support for the Ukrainian bid to become a full-fledged member. Speaking about the current state of affairs relating to the ongoing Russia's war, I would like also to use this opportunity to draw attention of all participants of this session to the tactics that are currently used by the Russian forces against Ukraine. And these are the tactics of terrorists that terrorize, that blackmail civilian population to achieve their political ends. And the Russian forces resort to this kind of tactics because of the failure on the battleground. They were losing to the Ukrainian forces, so now they are attacking the civilians with greater strength. And this brings me to pointing out our very strong conviction of the need for recognition of the Russian Federation as a terrorist state and as a state sponsor of terrorism. It was recently that the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted a resolution clearly determining that Russia is governed by a terrorist regime. It is essential in our review that the same determinations are also adopted by individual countries. And this would not only be a matter of political recognition of the actual state of affairs, of how Russia conducts attacks on the Ukrainian civilian population. This recognition would also provide additional instruments of pressure on Russia because of its terrorist activities against another the I would suggest
I'm sorry.
Yes?
I think we do not have heard the last question, but we have 1 more minute.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Your Excellency, we have 1 more minute because we also have Mrs. Zidaru from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs waiting, and we don't hear you clearly.
Okay. I think that I maybe try to link up at another point when the communication will be of better quality. But I think that the main messages that I wanted to deliver, I have done so. One last point that I would like to make relates to the reconstruction activities of Ukraine. And this is another matter of this very strong interconnection and integration that needs to be established. The respective proposals have been put forward by the Ukrainian government, and it is essential that the practical responses and practical involvement of our partners takes place at a very early stage, so that the Ukrainian citizens displaced in Ukraine or were forced to get displaced in areas beyond the borders of Ukraine can return back home. I will conclude here and wish a successful discussion to all participants of today's session and today's conference. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you for this complex presentation and for pointing out the very important aspects. We thank you once again and hope to see you next time online and physically present also here in Sibiu. Thank you. Just one small administrative remark. We have 10 or maximum 15 minutes per speaker because as you have seen, we have quite an interesting agenda. And I am now delighted to invite our next speaker, Her Excellency Ms. Irina Zidaru, General Director of Strategic Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Romania. Ms. Zidaru, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leka, Professor Nate. Please allow me, first of all, to congratulate you for organizing this event. And please let me remark that today's conference proves once more the interest of the Romanian universities in major international subjects. I do believe that today's event will contribute to further enhancing the connections between Romanian scholars and the academia to the dynamic debate which is taking place in the Euro-Atlantic area. The war which Russia launched against Ukraine on the 24th of February this year is a dramatic event that changed the security landscape in Romania's immediate neighborhood, in the Black Sea region, and for the entire Euro-Atlantic community and the entire world. The situation in the Black Sea continues to be unstable and unsecure. While we need to continue to support Ukraine, we also need to avoid any overflow of the conflict and to build a solid foundation for peace in the region. However, the war continues. Romania and other countries in the Black Sea region are within the reach of Russia's military capabilities which are placed in the illegally occupied peninsula of Crimea. Russia's moves in the Black Sea keep expanding its anti-access and anti-denial area to the detriment of the riparian allied states and to the detriment of Ukraine and Georgia, and for the freedom of movement for military and commercial activities in the Black Sea. The natural question to be asked is what needs to be done? We need a more strategic and long-term approach to the Black Sea, that's for sure. For this, Romania acts on several dimensions: defense, support for Ukraine and for the other countries in the region, as well as preserving the security in the Black Sea. On the defense side, the summit in Madrid this year has been a turning point for the defense of the eastern flank. The decisions to set up additional 4 battle groups, which can be upgraded to a brigade level, has given the defense of the eastern flank a really strategic boost. Romania is grateful to host almost 5,000 allied soldiers on our territory as part of all measures and structures developed since 2014. We thank France for taking the lead of the allied battle group in Romania. This is a very powerful demonstration of allied solidarity and support, a very powerful deterrent. We are doing our best to do our part in terms of host nation support, ensuring national home defense forces and fulfilling the capability targets we have agreed with NATO. We work with all our allies to fully implement the decision which has been taken in Madrid in order to build a truly robust, effective and powerful deterrent in the Black Sea. On the Black Sea security, we are working closely with all the other riparian countries which are sharing our strategic goals and which are sharing our democratic values, which are Bulgaria, Georgia, and Turkey, and Ukraine, in order to preserve the security and freedom of navigation and movement in the Black Sea. We will intensify our political dialogue and cooperation to this aim. As part of this effort, we believe it is necessary to enhance regional capabilities, to exchange arid and maritime picture and plug this into NATO in order to improve situational awareness and the capacity for early warning. On the support side, we carry on the policy of non-recognition with regard to Crimea and all the other territories which has been illegally declared to be annexed by the Russian Federation in the total dismay of the international law, which Russia continues to perform in the Black Sea. This includes the declaration of an interdiction for zone for military and commercial traffic, which partially covers a part of Romania's economic and contiguous zone. At the same time, a key lesson learned from Ukraine is the need to long-term policies for support for Georgia, Ukraine, and the Republic of Moldova. It is expected that Ukraine would get a lot of help for reconstruction, but a truly strategic approach for the region would require a multifaceted support for Georgia and the Republic of Moldova as well. Such strategic approach should include at least 3 key areas: defense, resilience, and economy, with the aim to ensure that these countries will become self-sustainable, resistant to hybrid challenges, and able to protect their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Should they remain in a state of continual vulnerability, they will be a temptation for their most powerful neighbor to keep them at least in a state of dependency. So we need to take a long-term, determined effort to consolidate all these 3 states as part of more secure and stable region. So to sum up, there is a lot of work to do in order to improve the security in the Black Sea now and for the long way. We look forward to continue working with our allies and partners to this end. The meeting of NATO foreign ministers, which Romania will host this November, will be a very good opportunity to further discuss these issues and work for the way ahead. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm ready to take your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is indeed very important that you pointed out Romania's role in enhancing the security environment in the Black Sea area, especially the three partner states that you mentioned. We thank you for participating today. Now we will move to our next speaker. We would like to invite Dr. Hanna Szelest. Dr. Szelest is a Security Studies Program Director from Ukrainian Prism and also Editor-in-Chief of Ukraine Analytica. Dr. Szelest, if you hear us, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It is a great pleasure to join this group, and definitely I dream that one day we will be able again to see it all together in that room rather than being online. But the current security situation is not making our logistics easy. Nevertheless, it was nice to hear the official positions from three countries, and it allows to skip some of the general views about the security situation or the perspectives of what we can have in the Black Sea, and to probably focus on several important issues that we need to consider and that we must consider if we speak about cooperation between Romania, Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova. So those countries who really made their choice about their future, the security arrangements, and the possibilities for development. So the good news are that all of us share what are the security threats. More or less, after February, we definitely understand, even that before our countries didn't have serious doubts about from where the strongest security threats are coming, but that's allowed us to bring more clarity and at the same time to make it clear what positions country of the Black Sea can have regarding the possible solutions for this security. We understand perfectly that we need the victory of Ukrainian state, because that's the victory not only for some 100 square kilometers on the east or on the south of Ukraine, but that is the victory about the freedom of choice for the foreign policy, for the security arrangements, for the sovereignty, not only of Ukraine, but also of those countries that have similar problems due to the Russian aggression in the different years. So that is more of the existential probably victory that will lead to the future arrangements and developments. But if that is the short-term or long-term perspective, depending on the weapon supply to Ukraine, we understand that there are certain issues about which we can and should talk already. And here we can divide them into the several issues. First is definitely the issues of the maritime security that are important for us, because we perfectly saw the year before the current invasion, how the Russian Federation been manipulating with the safety of navigation, with the Navy activities, with the war exercises, with blocking ports. So using all hybrid and military possibilities to prevent us from the normal maritime security and safety of navigation in the Black Sea. And the Black Sea is quite small, let's be honest. So when they are blocking something, they're disturbing the activities of other countries as well. So when the Russian Navy threw approximately 400 marine mines to the Black Sea region, that is the threat not only for Ukraine, because already Romania and Turkey managed to intercept several of them very close to their shores or at their shores, or even had accidents with their ships. So that means that even that originally everybody thought that that is actions against Ukraine, we understand how that deteriorated the situation in the whole Black Sea. So maritime security, that is definitely the issue about which we need to speak, especially after the de facto collapse of the Black Sea Harmony and Black Sea 4. So we need to search for the new opportunities of cooperation in this sphere. The second issue about which we can speak about the role of NATO in the Black Sea region. Let's be honest that till recently NATO predominantly saw the region as the neighboring, or like that their sphere of responsibility finish at the coastline of their members in Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey. But the developments demonstrate that this approach is not relevant anymore, and it's very dangerous because it's allowed the Russian Federation to monopolize the Black Sea and to threaten NATO countries as well. The NATO summit didn't bring us clarity to these because there are still too many questions about work with partners or how NATO is going to project security, because if in the previous documents we saw this idea of the not only projecting security and stability, but interdependence of the security of the partners and how it can influence the security of the NATO allies. The new strategic concept is lacking the clarity in these issues, but in practice, all those conversations that we have in Brussels or with NATO officials in our countries demonstrate that it is the window for opportunities. It is a little bit better vision of the Black Sea region as for now, and it is the openness for the certain cooperation and conversations. And here it depends on us as well, of the Black Sea countries, of members and those aspirants, how we will promote the Black Sea security within the NATO structures. What these tailored approach, tailored presence will mean, or how we can, let's say, overcome the certain hesitations that we have due to the Turkish position. Because we also understand perfectly that for so many decades, it was important for Turkey to present themselves as the main guarantor of security in the Black Sea region. But de facto, the last 8 months has demonstrated that blocking Bosphorus is the only way for Turkey, and they are not capable to counter the Russian Federation in the Black Sea region. So it should be the joint dialogue with Turkey as well, how to allow greater involvement of NATO in the Black Sea region. And here we can use different mechanisms for this. We can use the bilateral top level Ukraine-Turkish mechanism, or we can use the Polish, Romanian, Turkish high-level security dialogues regarding security. So there are different platforms that exist where we need to think how to resolve this issue of how to involve Turkey with less hesitation because of the cooperation with Moscow. The next issue is resilience. A year ago, we had the first NATO exercises in Odessa regarding the resilience. This year, they're scheduled for Georgia. And it means that the topic of resilience becoming more and more topical for the Black Sea region. And if we look to the 7 baselines of NATO for resilience, that is huge opportunities for our countries to cooperate, and there are huge opportunities for the Black Sea. Let's go for the issues like transportation, like cyber, like protection of critical infrastructure, or like allowment of the big movements of people, well, plenty of other stuff. As for now, we can see that they're becoming more and more important, and they need not only the national response, but the trans-border response. We know about the new center that's been created in Romania. So there are more and more experience and lessons learned that our countries can share among each other, but also what they can share with other countries that previously had less challenges in this sphere. So definitely a little bit less of the practical experience how to deal with these issues. And then the next issue about definitely that we need to speak about, it is Danube. And as the new way of entering the Black Sea, how we can guarantee security there, what we can do over there, and where we can involve the European Union capacities. So if I skip Danube as now, for not to go too much into the detail, for the European Union, I would like to emphasize several things. EU and some leading member states are definitely trying to create not only this strategic autonomy about which we've been talking for quite a long time, but also to speak about the greater responsibility of European Union as the security actor. Because previously we predominantly thought about EU from the security point of view as the domestic security, as police, as border management, as the fighting with terrorism, maybe, or cybersecurity. So European Union tried not to be involved that much in the hard security issues. Definitely the last few years, we started to hear more about hybrid, but it's still, we're more in the soft security issues and the battle groups. That's the maximum probably that we heard. Even in the conflict resolution, the European Union predominantly being involved with the modernization, post-conflict dialogues, reconstruction, something like this, but not in the real resolution for many years. Now we see that this trend is changing. With, for example, European Union creating the missions in Ukraine, like the latest decision for training 15,000 Ukrainians soldiers. So reforming the system of education for military. So that's also the two-way road. So European Union is searching for their ways how to be involved more in the security sphere, where it can be their added value, so not to have the overlapping with NATO. And the Black Sea probably will be that, or at least the Black Sea countries will be those where European Union will try the first initiatives with partners over there. And it depends on us what request we will be sending, how we will be ready to involve with these countries. With two candidate states, and I hope Georgia will join these candidates basket very soon as well, that will give the additional opportunities. At this moment, there will be less, let's say, definitely it's not the Eastern Partnership anymore that will prevail in this security dialogue, because as for now, we understand that Eastern Partnership in the previous format is not workable anymore. But what will be the new? Will we be able to bring the new initiatives in security sphere, in conflict resolution sphere, in hybrid warfare, in information, cyber, wherever, with the three association countries, with the those who are becoming candidate, and bring it more for the dialogue in the region. And then definitely we need to think more about the non-traditional challenges that we are receiving and what are the lessons learned, like the food security, the grain deal, and everything connected now with the blocking of ports of Ukraine demonstrated the challenges that previously the region didn't have. And we cannot say that that is the problem only of Ukraine. We saw how Romania joined and tried to help Ukraine, but at the same time, it clearly demonstrated that just goodwill is not enough, because definitely Romanian ports were not ready for this increased necessity of capacities and facilities. Our border infrastructure was not prepared for this. Our checkpoints were not prepared for this. We were not prepared because of the limitations for the navigation and many, many others. And that's opened the question for us, how we can increase this resilience and sustainability of that cooperation that is starting now. Because
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I will have to ask you to resume in maximum 1 minute, please.
Yeah, surely. And that's that was exactly my conclusions to which I wanted to come, that all the new security threats and challenges that we just highlighted or focused the last 8 months, they emphasized also those possible ways for cooperation for our countries. And we need to look at them both from the bilateral perspective, but also searching the new multilateral formats for the Black Sea region, where we can involve those countries that are really interesting to the positive change here.
Thank you so much. Indeed, we have extracted already many conclusions and recommendations from your speech. I'm very glad that you mentioned the NATO strategic concept and the points that could be enhanced in the future, as well as the potential for our bilateral and multilateral cooperation in the region. I thank you very much and welcome you also next time here in Sibiu. I hope so. So we will now go to Georgia virtually. And I have the honor to invite Mr. Victor Kipiani. Mr. Victor Kipiani is the chair of GeoCase, and a think tank that we have cooperated before. Welcome, Mr. Kipiani. Mr. Kipiani's interests include international relations, security, governance, implications of the global order for Georgia and for its neighborhood and macro economy. And I'm absolutely convinced that your presentation, Mr. Kipiani, will be very interesting. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, and that you put this strain on my shoulders. So hopefully I will prove your expectations. Thank you so much indeed for this very nice introduction. And there's obvious statements which could be made at the opening statements of my brief presentation, that Black Sea finally became the region of active interest in political and academic discourse. And this is not surprising because the security in the Black Sea, it's not just about the Black Sea as such, but the previous presentators, they spoke and touched on that. The Western security in the Black Sea swings food and the energy security worldwide. So it's not just looking at the points, at the issue from inside, but looking at the issue from outside as well. And then most importantly, we all realized that Black Sea, which was on the periphery of the great power competition for many, many years, is becoming the fulcrum of great power competition, and there is no sign that that competition will be bating anytime sooner. So probably we should look into that bitter truth into the eyes and be well equipped and well prepared for dealing and tackling with the challenges. What's happening, what we're witnessing now, that in the context of the security in the Black Sea, Russia is struggling to establish new strategic depths by pushing the United States and other allies further from its periphery. And frankly speaking, probably it's very arguable, but Russian geopolitics, regardless who runs Russia, whether it's Soviet Russia, Empire or Russian Federation, is always viewed in the optics of strategic depths. From the military standpoint, the safer the borders, the more distance between Russian borders and potential or existing enemies, the safer Russians are feeling themselves. So that's the Russian optics, and probably it's very straightforward, very basic understanding of geopolitics, but that's how the Russian politics are driven. On the same side, while Russia is trying to establish that new strategic depths, which runs across the Black Sea region exactly, that is accepted and seen by many in the West as an attempt to forge an exclusive sphere influence. So that's where our nations are stepping into the shoes and trying to fend off that attempt by Russia to draw a new iron curtain across the Europe. So to complicate the story further on, all this is happening at the background of the most severe period of stress the international law, international system is experiencing since the end of Cold War. So frankly speaking, we're just, of course, the nice statements about international law, international institutions are nice to hear, but we should be, we should acknowledge that we should be relying on our own resources, in the first instance. More resilient we are individually, more resilient we are collectively, better for us and better for the world. Another issue, not to run too much of philosophy, what is the Black Sea? Of course, the first response would be that the Black Sea is the geography. Of course, it's geography, but it's not just the geography and what unites the like-minded nations of the Black Sea. We could go one by one. Probably it's a legacy, could be. Legacy speaks for itself, it brings us together. But anything else probably could be some alignments of political systems, but that probably also a wrong response. It's not a complete and absolute alignment. So in terms of political systems, is it a psychological unity? could be, that's something, how we see the Black Sea from inside. But another point, how we present the Black Sea and how we present that psychological unity. And then what comes to my mind, just putting aside idealism and all the nice work, that what unites us in the first instance, it's perception of the common threats and common challenges, common risks. So let us be realistic. That is, from my standpoint, is the most uniting factor which brings us together. And from that perspective, if we agree on that, and we hopefully do agree, then probably our discussions would be more focused on specific results and more tangible and more substantiated. That being said, with all my respect, NATO, which is in the flux, and we're seeing, how NATO is beating around the bush not to step beyond its comfort zone, whereby the reality is completely different on our side. And frankly speaking, when I hear various discussions on NATO expansion, I'm a bit surprised, because NATO is, in the first instance, in the first place, is for ensuring security of the partner countries. So, but that's one side of this two-way street. Another side, that's immediate reactions and immediate decisions by NATO are very much high on agenda. And when I hear that Georgia or Ukraine would be joining NATO through the membership action plan, frankly speaking, I see that an excuse, making us to sit in the waiting room for an indefinite period of time. So that is, very sort of, the friendly criticism in a way. But that also leaves us, especially from Georgian standpoint, to think about, I'm using this connotation, compensatory security models. And those compensatory security models should be based on precisely our perception, what our common risks and challenges are in the region. That perception would also help us to position the Black Sea in the new security, global security setup, which is very, very controversial, as a new gravitational center in the hub and spoke security model. Because I will explain in a few words which I mean. I don't expect myself, and that's probably another arguable point from my side, that the global security model in a foreseeable world would be sort of in a combined, unified, or united. So I'm also using the premise that the future global security would be based on regional hub and spoke model. So there would be more articulated regional centers. And things in those regional centers, they competed with each other for a better security umbrella, for more investments as well. That's also another incentive for us to team up and join our efforts. I think that the Black Sea countries, should do the best of their efforts to win in that competition, because this is a competition. This is a competition, for a better security and for more investments. In terms of some practicable steps, without theorizing on the issue, it's my sort of my thinking from top of my head, perhaps very naive thinking, that institutionalizing our cooperation of the Black Sea nations, that's something which we should be looking at. And in one of my articles, I raised an idea of the Black Sea Declaration, which respective like-minded nations, Black Sea nations, would be signing, with the exception of Russia for clear reasons. That Black Sea Declaration, among highlighting the significance for regional peace and stability and all the nice statements, which typically are present in similar declarations, will focus on very specific critical issues, such as strengthening an understanding that this is an area free from corrupt influence, and zones of special interest and special influence. It would also focus on diversifying regional infrastructure and emphasizing the necessity for raising funds for those purposes. Next point, it would also pay special attention to importance for implementing socially and environmentally sustainable regional projects. It would also be more realistic about the so-called frozen conflicts, and I'm repeating and emphasizing, because when someone speaks about, say, frozen conflicts in Georgia, this is the wrong academic, about the geopolitical conflicts in the first instance. When, ladies and gentlemen, when you use this expression, ethnic conflicts, you're downgrading the importance of the KNR in response of the foreign policy objectives of Georgia. So those are just the instruments to impede, that policy, and nothing else. So of course, they have ethnicity on the surface, but in the depths, they're geopolitical conflicts in the first place. So let us not kid ourselves, on this issue as well. Next, Ms. Shalas, she mentioned the navigation, and of course, Black Sea, it's about maritime navigation primarily. So probably that declaration should also state the common understanding on navigational rights and exclusive economic zone and territorial seas. Probably, and I'm just taking some some experience how the things are developing into the Indo-Pacific zone. So probably could be more concentrated efforts to bolster operational safety, and that could be done through signing various bilateral codes or agreements, and probably greater transparency around the seabed natural resource explorations and exploratory activities. So that's something which I would suggest. And when I speak, the Black Sea declarations, just spontaneous idea, so probably one of the products, possibly, of our discussions could be laying out the draft of that declaration and reaching out to respective stakeholders. I don't know, it's just an idea or suggestion. And the last point which that declaration could hopefully focus is about moving towards setting up a regional free trade area. That's also something which could be discussed. And yes, and in terms of regional trade blocks, in terms of investing, bringing investments or attractive investments, perhaps a closer look at the experience of three seas initiatives could be taken into account so to develop the economic potential of the Black Sea area to the fullest extent possible. Okay, so strictly from Georgian security standpoint, Black Sea is unique for us because it's simultaneously a potential. It's a potential for national development because why the Black Sea we're plugging into the global world, but same time simultaneously it's a source of threat. When I'm arguing about increasing the Georgian security, of course, formal alliances, weaponry, all the stuff, which relates to the military stuff, it's important. But for a small nation like Georgia, a much better security to the way to enhance its security is to articulate its functional necessity in the region. If you see what I mean, but the functionality, the necessity, the need for your contribution, I think something, which could articulate our security even better. When you are needed, when you're able to contribute, when you are not just a recipient, but you're a contributor. I think, that is very important point, which Georgian politics still required to reconsider. But that's sort of, a new qualitative level probably on our side. Also, when you remember, I mentioned the compensatory models. and with NATO being at the crossroads of its sort of definitive decisions, probably would be time to think about small alliances. And the example of quadrilateral security dialogue or AUKUS could be an example for us to move in that direction. To think about small NATO in the Black Sea could be an option. I'm just sharing with you those thoughts.
Mr. Pipiani, I would kindly ask you to resume.
Yes, exactly. I'm getting to the point that all in all, those were just an attempts from my side to throw some practical solutions. What is important, again, from what I've started with, to make the world to understand that Black Sea is not an isolated area. Black Sea is an integral component of the Eurasian security because it has connections to Europe, Middle East, and Asia simultaneously. That should be something of our sort of marketing the Black Sea by the Black Sea nations. And all in all, that would hopefully take us and our partners to understanding that the message beyond all those efforts should be very clear and very unambiguous. United, consolidated regional flag against common threats. And the issue of the threats, something which I've started my presentation when saying that the foundations of the Black unity in terms of security is a common perception of risks, threats, and challenges. So thank you. I would rather end up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cipriani. A very interesting presentation indeed. I noted down one idea that, first of all, we should read your articles, and second of all, the idea of institutionalizing our cooperation is indeed very important. We need cooperation and interoperability. Now we will move forward to Moldova, our neighbor. I'm delighted to invite Dr. Igor Munteanu. Domnule Munteanu, bine ați venit. Mr. Munteanu, welcome. Mr. Munteanu is Associate Professor, former Executive Director of PG's Viitorul, and former Ambassador of the Republic of Moldova in the United States. He's also a researcher in politics and governance, a former member of the Parliament, also a founder and acting chair of the administrative board of the EGIS Viitorul, one of the oldest think tanks in Moldova, which operates as a network center for good governance, accountability, procurement, budget transparency, as well as a specialized center in decentralization. Mr. Munteanu, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for inviting me to this outstanding event. Let me share my views and thanks to the organization. First of all, let me salute all my friends and colleagues from Romania, from Georgia, from Ukraine. This is a critical time when our solidarity is quite an important element of designing the future for the region and also for the policies of the European Union, which are important to us. Let me start by a constatation and observation. Russia is losing ground in Ukraine. Past mobilization in Russia is switching new dynamics in the aggressor state that could create the waves of dissidence that is so much needed in this state. Russia has attempted to make Ukraine surrender, but failed to accomplish its original plan. It changed the original plan to mass attrition, then to systemic terror over Ukrainian cities with targeted bombing of civilian infrastructure, energy, residential buildings and ports. But despite all mass crimes and atrocities, Ukraine did not surrender. Therefore, the courage and resistance of the Ukrainian nation is one of the key factors for Russia to be unable to meet its occupational goals. Russia expected the West to abandon Ukraine. It applied large and sophisticated networks of lobbyists, political clientele, and business proxies. They tagged media and extremist groups to divide and split Europe, to surrender before winter, but it failed again. Europe and the Americans remained united, solid and determined not to tolerate another Anschluss, which enabled Hitler to expand and gear up its military machine of destruction before the Second World War. This is the second key factor that vanished Russian blitzkrieg. Miscalculations were behind logical comprehension inside Russia, but also outside Ukraine. Moving from the assumption that Ukraine leadership may surrender and will accept an exit was definitely playing wrong with the character of Ukrainian President Zelensky, but also with the mood of Ukrainians, which fight for real, not for abstract matters, for their lives and not for foreign slogans or ideologies. The very assumption that Russia has an upper hand in the West because of energy pipelines and as a result the later can easily discard Eastern Europe is now obsolete and has no any reasons. After 8 waves of consecutive sanctions and Russian exports, banks, officials, banning technologies and connections to the global market was therefore a logical imperative and unavoidable. Aggressors must pay the full price. This is the logic behind rejecting any temptation to do business as usual with Russians. But to win the war, we need not only to supply arms, munition, and other support to Ukrainians to defend themselves, we need also to accelerate Russian imperial defeat and decay. In my opinion, this must include defeat of the aggressor on the battlefield, reconstruction of Ukraine, and full integration of the trio group, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, in both European Union and NATO. Since only this dual membership may provide peace and stability across the European continent. This is how I shall define victory this war. No more gray zones, which were left or they are supposed for grab. When Ukraine will liberate its territories, and I say when, not if, this will push Russia beyond territories which Russia claims of its own, will retrocede Crimea, then Russia will face the united democratic legal consequences, which means that Russia will pay the retribution for the old crimes and for destruction it committed. There is no way to return to a bipolar world where Russia would be tolerated to speak about vital spheres of influence, or to believe that it can cut off territories of the other countries when it like it. Or where seasoned diplomats will teach us in face-saving exercises for Russia. Polls show that public sentiment across Europe reveal considerable unity and support to Ukraine in face of military aggression, in spite of some initial frictions, hesitations, or even obsessions to keep diplomatic doors open to listen what Vladimir will tell us. The political mess-up is gone. Now full clarity, strategical clarity is in place. Of course, a regime change in Moscow would be preferable to a long and prolonged war, but the stakes of this historical challenge between the Russian regime and the rest of the world is clear now and accepted. We don't see yet the end of this nightmare of the war, but we feel it and see the signs of Russian defeat coming up. No one can accommodate Kremlin imperialistic wishes, and the isolation that Russia will endure is for a long term. So Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia must be fully integrated into the system of Euro-Atlantic world, as the title of this panel say, or into what this exactly means to be a recipient of the Western security guarantees and not to be left into the gray zone or somewhere in between. Nothing may stand as before. Preferential energy deals with some Western states and Russian capitals adopted in several capitals of Europe cannot be tolerated. This crisis has generated an impetus to support one single policy and sanctions, and aid delivered to Ukraine, endorsed with overwhelming support of the European Union allies. Even if the efficacy of the sanctions is sometimes questioned, few oppose the need for having a unified front against the aggressor state Russia. This makes the previous division of Europe, East-West, meaningless, hoax or dose. Votes in the UN General Assembly show the catastrophic diplomatic defeat of Russia, which cannot do business as usual anytime soon. Isolation is nearly complete with only 2 or 3 satellites voting Russian resolutions, and everyone condemning Russia for war crimes and mass killings, with fully documented evidences that are investigated by the International Criminal Court. Russia will pay the full price for its crimes, and this is definitely not only about its current leadership, Putin, but also about those who kill people in Ukrainian cities, pushing the button to destroy cities and innocent populations. To win the war, we shall define what is victory. If Ukraine will liberate its territories, defeating Russia on the battlefield, pushing Russia to withdraw to the lines it held before the war, accession talks must start with reconstruction efforts simultaneously. Most of Europeans believe today that Ukraine is right to expect that all territories will be returned into the critical areas, and it must be integrated fully into the political body of the European Union. Then Ukraine, Moldova, but also Georgia must stand up and prepare for accession talks as promised in June 23, 2022. Decision of the European Council to recognize and engage in a journey that is very much desired, expected, and appreciated. We have 61% of people in Moldova which deem necessary and adequate to be part of the European Union in September polls. And the support is increasing today. No more talks about alternative scenarios like the European political community as additional waiting rooms. Only hard work, blood, and transpiration, as Winston Churchill once described the mobilization of the British nation against foreign invaders, but also conditionalities. Moldova has 9 conditionalities that we must meet in order to start accession talks. I guess the list is shorter for Ukraine. Nevertheless, the line has been crossed. The Rubicon has been crossed. And of course, all of us need to understand that Russia cannot be partner or even an interlocutor very soon. This would suggest also that Moldova must exclude Russia from the previous 5+2 negotiations or talks. A new format has to be adopted in the case of a Transnistrian breakaway region. This means also solid instruments to regime change in the occupied territory, reducing the impact of the energy blackmail from Russia, which gives now an oxygen vest to the separatist administration and military contingents in Transnistria. It means also barring Transnistrian lobbyists from imposing the Russian agenda in Chisinau in order to safeguard separatist regime as a proxy to Moscow imperial interests. It means also specific actions to reduce the influence of Russian vested networks to destabilize situation in Moldova in financial, political, and other ways through special services. And I'm very happy to welcome the sanctions, the recent sanctions, and 2 oligarchs coming from OFAC, from the US administration and Treasury Department of the United States, specifically put 2 oligarchs, Plahotniuc and Shor, through the famous Global Magnitsky Accountability Act. I think, of course, these kind of trends are very welcome, and they are paving the way towards specific achievements and accomplishments of the current government in making judiciary work for better performances. And membership of the European Union is definitely in cards for Moldova, for Ukraine, and Georgia. Therefore, trade-offs with Russian proxies in Transnistria must not influence the choice made by Moldovan citizens. Thank you very much, and I will be happy to respond to your questions.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your presentation. And indeed, you mentioned the fact that the ambivalence is reduced, and I'm happy to hear that, as you said, the case of Moldova and the September polls look this good. And also the ambivalence in the Western dimension is reduced or even disappeared in some cases, as the Western countries are clearly showing this strategic choice and the full support towards Ukraine and also Moldova, as it is the case of sanctions adopted by OFAC. Thank you so much. We hope to see you next time in Sibiu or in Chisinau. And we are now opening the Q&A session. Everybody who is watching us online, please raise the hand or write down your questions, and we will put the questions to our speakers. Do we have already any questions?
If we don't have questions, then I will raise one.
Okay.
Okay. So my question to the distinguished speakers is, what own strengths can the European Union rely on to stabilize the security climate and support economic development in the Black Sea region? So what would be the expectations related to the European Union action in the region? Because we were somehow condemned to strategic oblivion for some time here in the Black Sea. Maybe not Romania or EU members or NATO members, but the eastern neighborhood of NATO and the EU.
Whom should we ask first to answer? Yes, Ms. Zidaru, we saw your hand. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Once again, congrats for this important and very well organized event. I don't want to jump to any conclusion yet regarding the substance of our debates, because a few panels will begin shortly. I just want to express a few remarks regarding your question. First of all, I would start by saying that in the Black Sea we have 3 allied states. And from this point of view, given the fact that security is pending to the North Atlantic Organization, I think that we should bear in mind the need to have more NATO involved in the Black Sea with exercises, because these are essential in order to emphasize the role of the deterrence, which plays an important part in all the effort related, especially to the war which is taking place in Ukraine. On the other hand, of course, given the fact that 3 states in our region, Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova, got the status of a candidate country, and the Republic of Georgia has been recognized, the European perspective of the Republic of Georgia has been recognized. We need to keep an eye on the way ahead regarding the talks and the institutionalized relationship of these countries with the European Union, which plays a consistent part in what the strengthening of the relationship is concerned, and in making concrete steps for the prosperity of the region. For the upcoming span of time, we have to keep in mind the need to manage the energy situation, and of course not lose sight of what was dominating our agendas during the summer, namely the food security issue and the grain corridors, allowing the transportation of the Ukrainian harvest towards the beneficiaries in the Black Sea area and beyond, because this is equally important. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Zidaru. Do we have any other question? Or maybe answers or comments?
Yes, if I can also jump for the answer, small. If we speak about the European Union and what are their capacities, so let's think about 3 issues that are the most important and that can be added value of the European Union. First of all is definitely the accession mechanisms and those reforms that are supported through this long way. They are important because they will allow the better political stability of the countries and the democratic governance. And that means the increased capacity of the institutions of the country. So this way definitely should be among the priorities without any hesitation. So the second is energy security. That's also the sphere where the European Union can be more effective than just bilateral cooperation or NATO role. And we see how the energy security is becoming more and more important from the classical point of view. That's what the Russian Federation is threatening. And here, let's speak not only as we used to speak about gas. Gas is just one part of. We are speaking about nuclear, we are speaking about electricity, all those energy sources that became so important for us. And the last but not the least is critical infrastructure. That's also, we have a lot of critical infrastructure within the Black Sea region. We understand how they are prime target for many of the actions of the Russian Federation, but also of the potential actions of other adversaries that can be interested in destabilizing the region. That's why these three fields, it seems to me, can become a top priority for the EU involvement in the region.
May I just add in two words, if I may, was you. Excuse me?
Yeah. Yeah, we hear you. We hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Yeah,
so well, very briefly, I wish that EU bureaucracy has more consistency in its decision-making process, and I'll explain why. With all my due respect, they have given the candidacy status to Moldova and Ukraine. Fine, no problem about that. They've denied us the candidacy status. If you look, you know how they granted the candidacy status to Ukraine and Moldova and to Georgia. They have the same conditions and the same requirements for Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia. Same time, they broke down those three countries into two groups. So I wish more consistency and more logic. So of course, you know, it was frustrating for us. It was extremely disappointing. We're still ready to pass that exam and to pass the litmus test, but more consistency, more coherency, more logics would be very much appreciated. So that is my friendly wish to the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kipiani. We also see that our friend Andras is also would like to intervene. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and apologies for not being able to be there personally in Sibiu. I'm right now struggling with COVID, so that's the reason I couldn't come. We'd just like to ask a very short question directly from Hannah. Hannah, how do you see the sustainability of the Istanbul grain deal? So do you see a chance that Russia might not stick to the agreement, or they might try to hamper its actual implementation? Because as Her Excellency Zidaru also said, food security is a crucial concern in this problem. I would be really glad to hear your opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andras. Very briefly, first, Russia is already hampering the implementation of this agreement. You can go to this week news at the Black Sea News website. Russia managed to, how to say it, they are hampering the inspections near Istanbul. We have around 100 ships waiting, some of them up to 2 weeks for the inspections. They're declining bringing additional inspectors, but also they're just postponing and delaying the proper inspection. So we now have even the, yesterday, if I'm mistaken, it was the official request from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine to deal with this situation. So even now, the Russian Federation is trying to spoil what is already agreed. The second problem is that current agreement being only for 4 months and it expires in the mid of November. We're now in the initial stage of negotiations, and unfortunately we hear more and more bad signs that the Russian Federation would like at least to bargain something for the prolongation of this deal. And this bargaining is either for some sanctions lifting from them or some additional preferences for them. But in general, let's say the information environment against these negotiations are very risky and quite ill. So that's why I'm afraid that till the very last day when the new agreement will be signed or the agreement signed about the prolongation of this deal, we cannot be sure that this agreement will be stable. That's why Ukraine is preparing for at least some time of the some weeks of problems, let's say in the second half of November, and how we can use the land and railway routes, because the Russian Federation definitely is not going to prolong it smoothly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I think we will have to wrap up here. Thank you for being with us today.
Yes. We'll have a break for 10 minutes. Thank you very much for all distinguished speakers. We will turn back at 3 o'clock Bucharest time, actually in 13 minutes. And we will start with the opening remarks session. So please stay with us, even if we interrupt for a little bit. We will have the connection on, but we will put an wallpaper on the screen. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Please stay with us. Thank you.